You are listening to We Are the Compassionate Revolution. I'm your podcast host, therapist, author, boundaries guide, Molly Moon. If you are a compassionate person and you want to know your worth, set better boundaries, live from your truth, and operate in your fullness, then I am so glad you've joined us. You ready? Let's get started. Hey, everybody. I am so happy to welcome you to this episode today. And we're with somebody that I have a lot of affection and respect for, Amy Thompson, who is a narrative specialist. She's actually a coach inside of my Boundaries program, as well as so many other things. Amy has a background in physical therapy, doctorate in physical therapy, bachelor's in biology, and a master's in community and public health. It's interesting because whenever I think of you, Amy, it's as an artist, singer, songwriter. It's funny because there's such a sciencey side of you, but oh my gosh, the artist side of you is just delicious. And Amy has specialty in working with pain right now. That's emotional pain, psychological pain, the stories of healing, hope, change, transmutation, shifting, changing. And you happen to live in Minneapolis, which is a place where a great, terrible, and wonderful story is unfolding. And we're going to be talking about that today. But before we start with that, Amy, I know there's a million things I missed. Please fill in the blanks. How would you like to be introduced?
Gosh, thanks, Molly. Thanks so much for having me. Just before we were recording, just a deep breath and exhale and reverence just to be here with you in this moment. So thanks for having me. And I should clarify, I live in St. Paul. So Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the heart of some revolutionary action, though, no doubt. I guess I'll just add some story maybe to my quote bio, which has always felt quite impossible to me, but some of my earliest memory as a person, and I guess as an artist, was as a poet. So as a little girl, I was writing poetry on little bits of paper before I knew what poetry was. I didn't read poets. I didn't know poets existed. I didn't know poetry was a thing, but I was writing it. And the same for music and singing. I had in the first grade, I had a choir that I led and on the playground. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And I say that because some of the action and things we'll talk about here and where I've come around to at the age almost 40 is a lot of those same things. So those artistic inflections and influences are really a part of the healing work I do, the story work I do. To call it work isn't really right either. It's definitely a deep collaboration that I'm in with self and other, all of us kind of doing the soul work to walk ourselves home.
Oof. I already have chills. I know that probably every single listener is well aware of what's going on. Now, we're recording on a Thursday, and this episode won't air for 5 more days. So many things may be different between now and the time this airs. But just in the event that someone's really kind of keeping out of everything that's happening right now or coming here from another country and hasn't been paying attention to the news in the US, which would be fair, would you mind giving a very short synopsis of what's happening in your area of the globe?
Yeah. So in Minnesota, really for the last many months, but more specifically the last few months, there's been what they call a surge of federal agents in the cities, both Minneapolis and St. Paul, ICE in particular, looking for, quote, illegal immigrants. The way that has looked and the way that's been carried out here has been a violation of every human right you can think of. People are being pulled out of their homes. People are being ripped out of their cars. People are being shot in the street just for protesting and even just observing. So there's a lot happening here that feels like almost impossible to explain. But basically, federal forces have been brought into the cities in this surge of terror.
Yeah, something that it'd be hard to even imagine believing would be possible is suddenly becoming very possible, and we know that happened to other cities before it really started like this in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, one thing I learned is, like, that I'm just in one of the trainings I was in, that there are 5 times more agents here now than there were sent into Chicago,
Oh
and
my
the
gosh,
population is quite different here than in Chicago. It's a lot less populated here, but
wow.
so there are, lots and lots of, agents here.
I had friends in Chicago, and the news coming in about what was happening was so minuscule compared to what people there were talking about. Chicago was hard to even comprehend that was actually happening, and now it seems like child's play compared to what's been happening.
Yeah.
So what I was so happy to have you here for, Amy, was because you are the epitome of the trained, compassionate human being who really wants to see the world become a better place and is using your gifts at the maximum capacity. You know how to use them at this time in this season, and you happen to live in this spot. So, of course, then getting involved in trying to help stand up for human rights was just a natural. I think we actually had the podcast interview with you scheduled for a different time, and you had to cancel because you had to go be in a
Mm.
protest.
Yeah, that's right.
You're like, I can't really be there." I'm like, "Yes, go."
Right, right. Uh-huh.
But we have so many compassionate people who listen to this, who care about what's happening in the world, and I know that you don't have everything all figured out, nobody does, but you are living it, and you're walking in love as best as you know how, walking in boundaries as best as you know how, walking in what love is asking you to do right now as best as you know how. So I kinda wanna explore that with you, talk about what this experience is like for you and what you're learning and what you can share with the rest of us. Could we start, if it is okay with you, with your own history with working with pain? And I believe that started out with physical pain, but correct me if I'm wrong there, and how pain and what you now do with story kind of coalesce to bring you into what you do professionally now.
I was lucky. So as a physical therapist before that, when I was in physical therapy school, I got to sit at the feet of some brilliant thinkers and mentors and people leading in neurology and physio and around pain and pain science that really expanded the way I thought of pain and still do, still expanding. One thing, definitely, the more that I heal myself and the more I walk my own path and journey, is that I don't really differentiate them anymore. Physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, it's just all the same. And one thing about me that I can also trace back to me in my youth is I've always been okay to touch pain. There's something about that that has drawn me toward it, to sit with, sit in, sit next to pain. And so being in that field in physical therapy gave me such a privileged seat to people's deep pain and experiences of physical pain, but especially chronic pain. So what really drew me into story was working with people who'd been in persistent pain, so pain that had kept on for decades. And initially, my first doorway was working with folks that had phantom limb pain, so excruciating pain in a limb that, quote, didn't exist anymore. So already that's like there's something wider happening here, and I could go on and on about the ways that we treat pain in our current medical system that are kind of like a go in, cut the thing out, sew it up. Did that fix your pain? Oh, it's still there, sure. And how we do that really in society in lots of ways too. But one of the things that I really sat with and started to learn the more that I listened to people is that their stories about who they are and were, why they were in pain, what happened, their stories that were told to them about what their body was, what they could or couldn't heal, had a lot to do with what their body would do with them. And so we played with that. We played with shifting story, playing with story, and shifting pain states, and often finding that what pain really needed was a witness, someone to touch it, listen to it, be next to it. And that I definitely see as a through line to where we are now in the pain and the surges of conditions that have been around for a long, long time,
Yeah.
so even in this, like, this wave of very acute pain and terror and trauma, this real deep nod to know that, this has always been here, and this will continue to be here until we face it, touch it, sit next to it, observe it, and so all of those things feel pretty connected to the moment right now too.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. It's interesting because when I was working as a therapist with EMDR and internal family systems, both of those modalities, which are so incredible at working with trauma, it really fascinated me, even though they came at pain from a different direction, I guess I would say. There was a requirement of sitting with it to witness it with honor,
Yes.
and then it transmuted. But there's no transmuting, there's no shifting, there's no changing. So fascinating to hear that same thing with physical pain. And then also applying that then to the collective and to our wider position as members of the human species and what's manifesting right now. And I love what you said also about, yes, there's this very acute wound manifesting right now, but the wound's not new. The way it is manifesting right now is new, but the underlying condition has actually been present, and some people and some people groups have been experiencing it in rather acute ways for quite some time.
Absolutely.
It's just now being manifested on a much larger scale so that it's hard not to be aware of it right now.
Yeah, that's right. It's making me think too of, I mentioned this to you, I've been doing a lot of reading up on, Gandhi and MLK and really, really learning, especially here. There's so much generosity from longtime organizers and activists really, you know, teaching so many of us what it really means to be in community, how to hold each other up in a network, how to step in, step back, take breaths, hold, so much of that, and really sinking into nonviolence and nonviolent direct action in specific, and reading up on, MLK especially, like, trying to get inside that for myself, like, what actually is that? What is that as an action? What is nonviolence as an action in response to terror, violence, bullets? And when you and I are talking here about witnessing, that no pain can shift without being witnessed or touched. Visually, when I picture MLK and what nonviolent action really is, it's giving a slate, a blank slate for people to see what violence actually is and how it moves. And if it's met with violence, it kind of cancels out. But, if you're gonna hurt me, hit me, shoot me, whatever, if I'm nonviolent, the very least you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to see it. So something about that feels very, very present in this moment for me and in our community right now too.
Yet it reminds me of, nervous system basics where these things happen and we go into fight, flight, freeze, fawn, right? And in order to respond instead with nonviolence, it requires standing in a love, a faith, a trust, a truth. It requires shifting out of fight, flight, freeze, fawn because you can't do that from those positions. And those are very understandable. It's an understandable state that you don't even choose. It's almost an involuntary, understandable response, and it requires up leveling out of that response, almost just coming into a whole new understanding of the capacity and ability of being a human. And it's kind of fascinating. It really, really shows there is a choice here, which really puts it back on the aggressor and says, "You're making a choice. You're actually choosing this."
Yeah, respecting that response and going deeper. There's this one clip I keep thinking about. I can't remember the total number of how many times MLK got arrested, like 30, 20
It's a
some.
lot.
Yeah. And then there was one clip that I watched, and I was watching him be arrested, and I just noticed, Molly, like, his body was so loose. His body was so loose, like I saw even the way they were grabbing his arms were just relaxed, like, I could see movement in his body. He wasn't resisting even his arm where they were grabbing his arm. And I was just thinking about what it means to meet that moment in that way, that I think even all of us as compassionate people, we feel these very real nervous system responses, and they are right and true and good. And there's a way that we can respect them and move deeper. What MLK called that agape love, which is not the light, fluffy, love your oppressor, but in a deep way, this love envelops, the oppressor and the oppressed. And so trying to sink into that for what that means for us in this time, yeah, as people and as a collective, that we do have a choice, about how we show up and why.
Would you talk a little bit about what you have personally experienced when you're there standing up for human rights in the ways that you have so far? What has it been like there? What's the feeling? What are you noticing?
One thing is I've protested plenty in my life, but I haven't had the privilege to do so yet in 40 below with people, so
Oh my
that felt pretty
gosh.
new, and, having kind of a wilderness background, you know how dangerous, certain temps are, and when you're standing up in protest of anything, you're already, vulnerable in some ways, but you really learn, I think, especially coming together in community, when there are many, when you get the felt sense of community, it's a feeling, it's a feeling in the body. And I want to say that coming from, a vast amount of privilege in, my own crosshairs, definitely felt so much. There's something about this time, like so much fear, so much terror in my own system that I had to step over and step through to show up and show up again and show up again. And in that, how much it matters to be standing next to other people, holding hands, linking arms, standing tall, singing together. We're meant to do this together.
Makes me wanna cry. It's kind of like watching the Buddhist monks walk. You lose words really, regular words, and you start saying things like sacred or reverent. It's a different level of being a human.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the line from what poem. It's something about like, will the center hold,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think this showing up in this way, and how many times I've had to step over my fear, keep walking, drive there, show up to this thing. How you're just hoping that something will be there to catch you, and how every single time there has been, stepping into a place that might be a target, and stepping into a room or stepping onto a street where others are, and it just turns into this immediate hope, immediate solidarity that is it's just stronger. It's just bigger than we are, and yet we're so a part of it. It requires us, you know?
Reminds me of the witnessing we were just talking about on an individual level as somebody, working with another human, healing together and witnessing the pain. And here it's kind of the same thing coming in, having very natural human fears. Who wouldn't? Knowing that one is called to go stand and the weather is not, conducive to wanting to do that. Anyways, the environment's already not conducive to wanting to do
Sure.
that. And then 40 below wind chill means, definitely got an excuse for staying home. And to do it anyways and to be met with others who witness you stepping in, linking arms, you are witnessing them showing up. It's not so much witnessing pain, it's just more like witnessing each other and the power of presence and the power of solidarity. What a joy. What a joy. I think one of the ways it feels is like one is losing one's mind when we go step up our little tiny bodies in the face of what feels like all the power, none of the power. And then step up and we realize, wow, we have a lot of power in a really beautiful way. This is power right here.
That's right. And that kind of faux power that's wielded in such aggressive and violent ways, it's fed by our fear. And it keeps sticking in my head something you said about, it's not conducive to life. These temperatures are not, they're not conducive, and really waking up in my own story and timing as winding my time from kind of baby activist into, wherever I am now, that conditions for people who don't have white skin in our nation have not been conducive to life from before the beginning, and really reckoning with that, facing that, witnessing that, holding that.
Stuff like Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States is so fascinating. Even in our founding documents that only some people were people.
Right, right. One thing that I'm learning here too that has so much hope in it is that even though can seem so vile and random, it's like this playbook has been around for a long time, and the way to defeat it is also here. It's here and it's waiting for us to show up to it.
Oh, I love that.
And we just can. Like I'm learning so many things. I don't know if you've read the book Caste.
Yes, that is such a good book.
Yeah, and actually, Ava DuVernay, made a film based on that book called Origin.
What? I did not know
Yeah,
that.
and I
Alright,
th I think
cool.
it's on Hulu. Yeah, I watched it a couple weeks ago, and yeah, just still learning, and I mean, that Nazi Germany got its ideas for how to basically build out the Holocaust from segregation and slavery in the United States.
I know.
Yeah,
She says that South Africa developed its apartheid system by paying attention to the United States and Nazi Germany. Like,
yeah, yeah, right. So
what?
it's like, it's not random, and even this, so right here, this place, so I can feel in my body, and I even will feel this when I'm, on the street somewhere. I can look and feel in my body the place that it wants to split, the place that I wanna go, "Okay, me, you, how we are, how you are." So playing with this in my own physiology, my own spirit about it's almost kind of Jungian shadow too, that anything I see in anyone else is also in me. And that goes for everyone. That goes for that ICE agent. That goes for Donald Trump. I hope that I'm not living perhaps from those places, but anything that I see in another human is also in me. So what we see in these systems, where we uphold or whatever, where in my life, where am I in my spirit, do I terrorize something when I'm afraid in myself or elsewhere, right? Like trying to these projections and these fear arrows we can send out to kind of grow wider and take them back. When I think of the ways that compassionate people can serve this movement, even just from their own where they sit or stand without even moving, is to kind of stretch our spirit into wider space for us and other to take it back.
To do that, though, one's perception of self or ego or whatever word one would wanna use really has to be able to step aside and be seen as you're not actually my true self. You are a personality I think I am. Because the ego can't stretch to do that. The ego has to sort of live in that duality, either or, all nothing. You're the bad person, I'm the good person. It's so important to acknowledge white supremacy in this whole discussion, which, that's happening at a national and global scale, and yet what is called white fragility. If we can't acknowledge that, then if we can't acknowledge white supremacy, then we end up becoming what is written about with white fragility.
Yeah, that's
It
right.
because you can't do it. But the way to change this is by acknowledging it deeply. So uncomfortable to
Oh,
do so.
one of my meditation teachers, they always have this line, "Sweetie, ill will is not the way. Ill will is not the way, for self or for other." And I think in my early years in activism and otherwise, my idea of how to make myself a better activist was to like beat the shit out of myself for all the things I came from, all the things that got programmed into me, all the things I believed at one time that don't anymore. And that, again, sweetie, ill will is not the way. Having compassion for your conditioning, and that compassion can be made wide enough to swallow all sides of, and everyone stepped into, what we're seeing now, the symptoms and the people of these like kind of deeper conditions that are at play. I'm thinking in specific of this. Um, I went to a gathering meditation kind of community organizing meeting, and I had asked my teacher that night. I was just feeling so overwhelmed, angry, trembly, that kind of trembling heart. And I asked what to do with this, how to move with this, how to use this in a way, that doesn't harm. And they said something that's really been a mantra for me. So I'll pass it to you, whoever else can use it. And they said, let love touch it. Let love touch it. They also said that, as humans, we haven't necessarily tested it. We haven't tested how strong love actually is. We haven't tested the limits of love. And so I try to move in that space and way that there's still runway here. There's places we haven't gotten to as humans, because we haven't tested the limits of love yet. And I think we have our opportunity to do that now.
Wow. So true. We've had such a season of healing in many ways. Many people have been on this healing journey, and it's interesting to see this being paralleled by an opportunity to have a collective healing journey.
Mm.
I think that in the Twin Cities, we see something I've been really excited about is just this is it. This is it. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like when many people have been on a healing journey. So there's enough healed to stand up and to stand in love. This is what it looks like at a collective level, and the sense that it's just getting started. And I wish things were different again, but if the terror is going to be like this, then let the response be like this. Hey, my friends. I firmly believe that the common struggles we compassionate people face are often doorways, pointing us to the hidden beliefs that so many times keep us stuck. So if overgiving or people-pleasing or guilt around boundaries has been holding you back, I created something to help. It's called the Boundaries Breakthrough Mini Course, and right now, it's totally free. So if you feel the tug to grow in your boundaries journey, this is for you. You can start today at boundary.com/breakthrough. And if you're interested in coming to work with me more closely, the mini course is a wonderful way to dip your toe in the water, get some real help, and if you want to continue with me after that, then cool. I would love that. Boundary.com/breakthrough. It's really good stuff. Have fun. One of the things you said that moved me, you said that the art is strong, the music is strong, the poetry is strong. The art is part of the amazing revolution.
Yeah. I mean, last week after, it was just only I was only a couple hours after Alex Preddy was murdered. 1,000 of us showed up to this church in Minneapolis and sang. There are these singing resistance meetups and marches, protests of people singing, and in small pods in every neighborhood in Minneapolis and St. Paul are rising up, and then occasionally there's kind of these large community sings. And the power, the vibration, the resonance, the rib cages just vibrating in sound and grief and love in one place is extraordinary, and you, wherever you are listening, you can borrow that from right where you are, that it's not just here. It's like it's all of ours to tap into at any and all times. It's ours. It's ours as we make it. And to feel into that space is just, that's been such a gift of this time, is to not just remember that in ourselves as humans, but to expand that, grow that, cultivate that. That's the place that we transmute, the place that we grieve, the place that we sustain. An activist that I heard speak recently said, just coming together to resist isn't what sustains a movement. joy and care and love is what sustains a movement. It can't just be we're coming together to like fight this monster and so that brings us together and sustains us. No, that's a part of it, but that's not there's no fuel in that. So really playing with the dynamic nature of, moments like this in time, but also moments like this in our lives, as compassionate people that, you and I talk a lot about and in the boundaries program too. There's something to be touched, faced, alchemized, grown, and that it is bigger than us and we are such a part of it. It requires our participation, right?
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we're taught is like the work is serious, whatever the work is, you got to be serious. You don't play. That's one of the things that you do so well is why not? And what if play actually, we know that from research, but it's still so counterintuitive. What if playing with this, being curious with this, adding song to this, adding dance to this, what if it actually empowers the movement, strengthens, knits it together, which it's one thing I think, Amy, to read about it. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. I read about it, I learn about it. I have not ever experienced that on a collective way in the way that you are right now in the Twin Cities. And it's such a gift you're bringing myself and everybody listening this experience of what is it like to experience it and what can we learn from you for when it comes to us, but also just to share not just in the collective pain and terror of what's happening, but to share in the collective hope, joy, and excitement for what's happening.
Yeah, it's been fun to hear how surprised people are about Minnesota, right? Because even living here, I mean, my God, I have friends all over the country that are like, Minnesota, huh? The only people who aren't surprised about what's happening in Minnesota, on a resistance front are the people in Minnesota because
That's so true.
this is a place, and I don't know what it is here, but I can say that there's something about it does have the bones for revolution, and it has the heart for it in few places I've been and seen. There's something about this place that's meeting this moment, and I think people here can feel it and are stepping into that.
Oh my gosh, it gives me chills. Isn't there something that Prince said about I can't remember, I saw a little video clip or something about Prince who chose to live in the Twin Cities, I believe in Minnesota at least, and he was
Oh,
saying
yeah,
that
he's from here.
he was saying
Yeah,
something about, like, the revolution will begin here, something
that's right.
so
Yeah,
prophetic.
Prince knew. Yeah, Prince totally knew.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, golly, wow. Um, there was something you were saying about poetry, and there was a poem that you shared speaking of using art, using story, using unconventional methods to speak truth and to speak in a new story. Would you be open to sharing that?
sure.
Who wrote that poem?
Oh, that was me.
That was you? I thought so.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Amy, that's a gift to us. Thank you.
Yeah, one thing I'll say just about poetry and music and painting and whatever the gifting is that you do in the quiet, of your space that you think has nothing to do with what's happening here on the collective. Oh, just to trust when the art is like this poem in particular, it felt like it was just punching through my throat. It was a few days after Renee Good was murdered, and I was in a coffee shop in Minneapolis, and just crying, and just wrote there were tears on this envelope that I wrote this poem on. But there's something about it because with the violence and death, I mean, casual killing, there is something that cannot be killed, and I think, that's what we all protect and cultivate, and that's kind of what this poem was pointing towards. Um, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll share it with you now. This poem is called How to Kill a Poet. Honestly, there are all kinds of ways, both hidden and way out in front, to kill a poet. You could burn his house down. You could push them off a cliff. You could shoot her with a gun. Lazy bullets would do it. Even a poor shot could. point blank, close range, driver side window kind of shit. Your shaky finger could pull a worn out trigger, like that one you pull in your dreams, the ones where you yourself are being hunted. You could be brave to kill a poet, but cowardice does it best. I want to tell you the truth, though. It's only fair. Poets have been getting away with this long enough. That house you burned down? Poet was the fire. That cliff you pushed them over? Poet was the air that caught them. That bullet you shot through her window, through her head? That bullet was the song that only she could sing. That bullet was the dog in the back seat that still found a way to walk her home. The thing about killing a poet is that you can't kill a poet, and you never will. Pull forward, Renee. Fly free.
Oh, thank you for reading that.
Thanks for the invitation.
So heavy, but it's good heavy. It's the kind of
Yeah.
heaviness, kinda like you were talking about with pain, the pain you wanna sit in because it's really important pain.
Yeah, there's something to touch there, something to know, something that's trying to tell itself through us. And one of the things that really hurt my heart was hearing some of the ways Renee was painted in other media outlets, and one of the things that pissed me off the most was self-proclaimed poet. So I was marching around with that for a while, like, oh, self-proclaimed poet. Interesting, how anyone and everything could be a self-proclaimed whatever you are. And just playing with that and really feeling into, holy shit, she outlasted you. That unnameable, that power that she had as a poet, you could never kill that. And that's really what this poem is in, and finding, like I said, the place to honor that, the places where boundaries live, the place where we say no, not this way, turn your shoulders this way, that there are these stopping points and these places to stand up, and simultaneously while doing that, paradoxically becoming wider and folding in the systemic issues, the causes and conditions that make this the reality. So that's the place that I, in my own art, and even in that poem, I can feel myself grappling with that little bit of a teacher of mine talks about the difference between rage and outrage, but that rightful outrage, to transmute that and at the same time not use that as a sword, because that's not, as you would say in your work, pro-relational. So playing with that edge as a person and as an artist, I think, is an important one to talk through and own and admit, and at the same time, put it down on the page. Move your pen, lift your voice, get your instrument out. It needs us to move through.
Exactly, and not sit in you and just run circles, run laps, and poison you.
Yep,
Yeah, absolutely. All the feelings aren't wrong, they're actually a sign something's terribly wrong.
of course.
Like the nervous system, of course they're gonna happen, and they're actually really healthy. We would want to be horrified, afraid, angry, upset at the things that are happening, terrible things happening to little kids. It's like it is supposed to evoke feelings, but what you are all doing is then moving the feelings, honoring them, witnessing them, moving them into action. Love-based action, not fear-based excuse action, kind of,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and I don't even mean that as an excuse. It makes sense that our bodies try to protect themselves, of course. So, I don't wanna say it that way. What I mean by excuse is kinda like what Terry Real says all the time in his relational counseling approach, is like, there's always a good reason. There will always be a good excuse to respond to hate with hate. There's always a great reason. There's always justification for meeting violence with violence. There's always a justification. You're contemptuous, I'm gonna be contemptuous back. It's very easy. And you will always, like, everyone always has a great argument for why they had to respond that way. My brain comes up with a great, I just responded in a way that I didn't like. Someone did me wrong recently over an extended period of time, and I was just like, "Duh, duh, 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 duh." And I thought even afterwards, I'm like, that was my nervous system right there. And I noticed my brain With everything that I know, my brain's like, "Yeah, well, this is different because here, this, and this is it's injustice is upon injustice is happening, and I've already tried this way, and so therefore it was right." And I just kinda, like, sat with it, and I'm like, "No, that was not, Molly. We're
Mm.
holding ourselves to a higher standard." And
Yeah.
just it's so easy to justify it all, but we don't ever nothing changes if we keep doing this. If we keep doing it this way, we lose, we all lose.
Right, and that there is space there to stretch, become wider and deeper in play, like, there's a practice I have folks do sometimes in writing where, and try not to go to the most, the most traumatic scene, but maybe like a potent one from your childhood or young adulthood where, you and another person or group of people are involved and you write the scene out, just the scene from your point of view, and then take a breath. And then you take your pen off the page and then you put it back on the page and you write it from the other person's point of view that was also there. And to really be a good writer, trying to get inside, what was their feeling? What was their emotion? What did they say? Why did they think that? I'd like to know that we can, stretch and move. What would guide someone to do that or to show up this way or react or respond in this way? That there's something more we can learn about ourselves and each other if we continue to stretch and pull back projections and become wider and just widen our compassion and move outward and into depth like that underground river, that agape soul love that MLK talked about, just to become wider, wider, stay loose.
Oh, stay loose, yes. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, let the light in. I was in a group yesterday, folks were talking about just trying to take care of their own emotional health while staying involved, while also not trying to live on social media all the time because of what it can do to the nervous system, but also wanting to stay aware. And, one gal was talking about how she was working to stay in a state of love instead of fear, and she was I don't know who she was referencing, but this research that was done on folks who are drawn into white supremacy groups, that there is a high level of emotional pain, disempowerment, a great deal of trauma in the individuals tended to be young white males who are drawn into what was a family, a community, a purpose, a cause, and they're living in this system that really doesn't give them much of one that they can see. And the person was talking about, "I'm really trying to hold while I stand very firmly against these actions, I'm really trying to see the humanity in them because I think that's what they want us to do is forget about the humanity, join aside and forget about the human element, and I'm refusing to do that."
Yeah, and that is our work. That's one of the places we can continue to garden ourselves, that we don't just stay, quote, vigilant outward, that we stay cultivating inward, Oh, that thought. Oh, that feeling. Oh, and not to battle it, but to let love touch it.
Hate doesn't move us into change as humans. Love is always what moves us into change.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is. Hate's not gonna get anyone to, you know, leave the one place that they're finding some degree of acceptance. And I notice that sometimes there's a whole lot of people now who might have their own political views, but they're actually leaving politics and going, "Okay, this is just wrong," and they're leaving the political side they were on, and sometimes they're actually getting a lot of people are getting welcomed with open arms, but there's some folks who still are in the game of politics and are basically like, "You are on the wrong side, I'm on the right side, and you're an asshole for ever being over there." And I love how many people I'm noticing, at least on social media, kind of saying, we don't do that here. We welcome everybody. It's never too late, come on over," because we're never gonna change this if we get on our righteous high horse and go, "Well, I knew a week before you knew. I knew 5 years before you knew. I knew the last generation before you knew."
Yeah, get here when you get here, and that work that we can do in ourselves to make space, make room, for everybody to move together, and that one's really yeah, that one's really alive for me. I was actually thinking about that on a walk I took before this conversation that, I've been on both sides of that exchange. That energy of feeling like, I'm late here, I'm sorry. I'm late here and I'm sorry. And then that kind of feeling that once you kind of, quote, "get somewhere," it's like somehow energetically your ego, what, slams the door shut behind you? Okay, I'm here, and now I turn around and I look at the people who, like, aren't saying it right or aren't sure. It's like, "Okay, sweetie, ill will is not the way." So in myself, like, "Oh, I'm punishing someone there still energetically," that I'm like, I'm mad that they voted a certain way or that they whatever, like, can I make space in me? That's my work. That's mine. Can I make space in me and, widen my story, because if I'm looking at someone in such a narrow way, I mean, fear does that, terror does that. There are plenty of rightful things in our nervous systems and stories that make our aperture very narrow, and there are ways to widen it.
Absolutely. Psychological inflexibility. It's like, particularly in dominant Western culture, I can't really speak for much else beyond what I know, but I know that even with the most well-intentioned people, blame and shame were just in the birth water.
Yeah, oh
And
god.
so it makes sense then, we're coming into love, but of course we still have all these tools of blame and shame, and we haven't yet gotten to the part where we examine those in ourselves. And yet it's so funny, it's so hypocritical, like, "I found the way of love. You asshole, you didn't."
Totally,
So first,
totally.
before you can come in here and join us in the more loving people seats, you can sit there and suffer and shame a little bit
Yeah, that's
before
right.
we let you up here in the special seats. Well, wait a minute. Isn't that hierarchy based on ego? Isn't that, it's total bullshit that we're dragging in. It's just our own unlooked at baggage, but it gives us the opportunity to open the baggage and shed some more of it, step
Yeah,
more into love. Why does it matter? Join the team.
yeah, it reminds me of, I know you and I both have some biblical upbringing background, but it reminds me of the prodigal son story, and as
So
a
true.
parable, okay, prodigal son comes home, and the other son's like, "What the fuck?"
Hey, dad.
The father's like, "Welcome home," you know?
Yeah. There's a higher principle here. It's so true. There's something higher
Yeah,
than
yeah.
who performed the
Yeah.
longest.
Yeah, yay this,
Yeah.
yay you home. That's it.
It's been interesting having such a extensive biblical background because 'cause I've lived in that world and kind of the propaganda that can be in there. But when you think about there's so many texts that come to mind, I'm sure you have them too, that there are some Jesus was revolutionary
Oh,
and
totally.
and so opposite that folks think that Jesus could support a reign of terror, violence, racism, all the things that are happening. It's like, I find myself really wanting to encourage people to go read
I mean, it is all there. I was just thinking
read
today,
those red letters one more time.
oh, yeah, that
Yeah,
just, what you do to the least of them, you do to me,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
And then, though, back into exactly what we're talking about, when I get judgy like that, I'm just thinking, "And Molly, when could you see it? When were you able to?" I'm 50 now, and it was like in my very early 30s, I really started questioning the narratives I was given about what these words are supposed to mean and how I have to then think about all the social issues in the world because all the stuff that is put on top of those words of Jesus that Jesus never said.
Oh,
Hard to question those things, so that humbles me. I have to go
yes.
back and go,
Yeah, and
took me a while.
how fun it can be, like, I've been thinking about this too with, like, I mean, even a line of poetry, books, songs that you come back to that you knew, decades before, and you hear it, and it's like you heard it for the first time, and you're like, "What? This has always been the lyrics to that song?" Like, there's something, like, beautiful and fun and, like and playful, like a cosmic wink that's like, "Okay, we're gonna plant a seed for you. You're gonna go on this whole wide journey, you're gonna have to shed a bunch of stuff, and then something's just gonna hit you in some, like, mundane moment, you're gonna say, 'Whoa, it's so special, like, so beautiful,' and to allow that of other people, instead of, like, slamming the doors shut behind us, like, of course not that. No, no."
You all, we're in the show notes, we're gonna put some links, and Amy I got the privilege of hearing Amy sing. I don't know if there's any gigs lined up anytime soon, but oh my gosh, if you are anywhere near Amy, guts to hear her. It's good stuff. You wanna hear a revolutionary with a microphone and a guitar. That voice comes with power. But, I was just thinking of how, there's been these leaders that have risen up all through human history. We're just talking about Jesus, we're talking about Gandhi, we're talking about Martin Luther King Jr. There's so many incredible people, many musicians. Think of Bob Marley, um, in their own ways, in their own places, standing up and singing a different story. I always think that songs are like spells, art as a spell, if we wanna kinda give it a metaphor. If we use quantum physics, it's kind of like sending a different vibrational pattern out. You've been getting into meditation, I've been getting into meditation. Joe Dispenza always calls it shimmering the web. I kinda like that way of thinking, like, here's a new pattern. Let's have this come back to us. What I think is so cool that's happening right now is that there are so many leaders standing up in their authentic selves that they've reached a level of healing that they can stand up, speak out, move, shake, shimmer the web, send out a new spell in all of these different areas. These new people standing up to lead their cities, like these, amazing mayors that you're just like, "Oh my gosh, that's the energy," or these just different people, and they're all so different. But that's the energy. These artists, these activists, all these people, and I keep thinking, despite the fact that there are so many leaders, this thing is leaderless in the sense of it is a great moving choir. It is a collective, and we literally are the change, and we are actually becoming it. It's so inspiring and exciting to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm thinking of this, Molly, I've had this conversation with a few people, in specific, the last speech that MLK gave the day before he was assassinated, and he has this stunning part. Talk about an artist, my god. He has this stunning part where he talks about, if the good Lord let me kind of fly through all of these different times, through, the Roman Empire, the Greeks, all of these places, I wouldn't wanna go there, I wouldn't let him set me down there, da, 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 da. If the good Lord gave me a choice, I'd say, let me live just a couple years right here. I'd wanna be here. And then he says, like, "Oh, well, why why? It's so messed up." And I just think, like, that thing, that guts to just say, "Oh, yeah," because how many of us just ache to be in a different time? And the thing is, it's always been this. This time is our time, and our stories write history. We all hold the pen. We choose, And to think about, well, depending on belief system, it's possible we did we did choose this time. Who knows? I don't pretend to know that. But,
Yeah, I like that
um,
though. That's kind
yeah,
of I'm going with that story. I like that one.
totally. Yeah, like,
Chose this.
I'd choose to be right here.
Yeah,
What would that mean to live that story? And for myself and my own story and art and even, singing, that's something I've been doing my whole life, and I feel like it's been decades of preparation for probably what's just about to begin,
think so too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Ugh,
You've taught me about that with timing and giftings, and there's something that's bigger than us that kind of decides sometimes. We cooperate with it, but,
and
yeah, we show up.
participate or not
Yeah.
participate.
Yeah, that's it.
But it's
Yeah.
happening.
You show up and you get out of the way at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think as we become ourselves, boundaries is one of those awakening processes, but it's one of many. As we become ourselves and then move into what we're here to do, we are each a cell in the collective body, and that thing can't not change. It's like a caterpillar when it's time to go in the cocoon. There's a certain point where critical mass happens, and now enough of the hormones of change have been released, and the liminal cells of the butterfly are waking up, and the cells of the caterpillar are going to start creating a cocoon and then dissolving. It's just how it happens. It's actually not violent. It happens. And I feel like it's liminal cells. We are the hormones sort of going through the caterpillar's body saying, "Time for butterfly." And it's happening.
Oh, and that we do have a home. I think sometimes in these times, it's like we feel so homeless to ourselves and each other, and depending on your healing path and many healing modalities I've explored in myself in different ways, that I have a felt sense and understanding in my system and beyond that love is the bottom, love is the top, love is the sides, love is the entire container we are in, that there is a bottom. You move through fear and hate and whatever, love is there. Like there's no direction you can go that love is not the final stop, full stop. We belong to that and we feel that, which is why we ache when we don't see it.
We've known that. That's what I actually feel. I feel like those of us, I call us compassionate people. There'd be many ways to call it. There are those of us who know we have these traits of empathy, conscientiousness, compassion, responsibility, and other centeredness. And we felt like misfits all this time. We've wondered what's been wrong with us. We've had to live in the dominant system. So we end up becoming codependent or people pleasers or whatever kind of words we burn out. We get stuck in parasitic, toxic relationships. We just because it's like we've been here and we wonder like why this world doesn't function the way that I know it ought to. I must be the wrong one. I must be losing my mind. Something must be wrong with me. How can I morph myself to somehow fit? And I think this time now, I was going to speak at a really pulled back level. This is our time. This is why we're here. But we have to come into our power. We have to it is like that change in the caterpillar. If you are a liminal disc, which is the name of the cells inside the caterpillar that are actually going to be butterflies, if you're a liminal disc inside the caterpillar, turns out nothing's been wrong with you. It's time now. Move with it. Go with it. You're right.
Yeah, you're right, and look up, because there's so many of us
There's a
here.
lot of us. Yeah, we're
Yeah, and even
multiplying.
just,
We're
like,
literally
grab
multiplying.
my hand, this side, that side, let's stand together, let's sit will you sit right next to me? Like, it reminds me there's this training I'm doing in PBSP, it's a type of, psychomotor therapy, there's a chapter about it, and Body Keeps the Score. And one of the practices in that when you're working with someone is, if something heavy is coming up and you ask, would you like a contact figure, someone to just sit next to you while you look at this? And how powerful it is for something to come up, in your spirit or whatever that's out in front of you, and for someone, a quote stranger, to just sit next to you, hold your hand. Maybe our legs are touching. How close do you want them? Right here. Okay, get it just right. Now look. Now look, right, that we make each other strong. We come up next to, and we have that power. We're not alone. We never were, and we weren't supposed to be.
Oh my gosh. Two things. If there are some resources that I know we've actually named a ton in our discussion, but if there are a few favorite resources that you would recommend people who want to learn more about some of the things you've been talking about, feel free to share those. And then I really want you to share, and this will be in the show notes, everybody. So go look there. But I really would love you to share. Those of you who are already inside the Boundaries program, you get to have a call every month with Amy, the narrative call that's so badass that you do that everyone raves about. But a lot of folks are listening from outside the program. How can they find you? How can they support your music? How can they, whatever it is that you got out there, tell us all the things.
Well, let's see. Like many compassionate people I know, the internet scared me off pretty good some years ago. So my my internet
Fair.
footprint is pretty minimal. That may and probably will shift soon. But I just have my website, which is storywell.org. And I do all kinds of narrative work with people, from one sessions to long time coaching sessions. I work with creatives, heart-centered, everyone's, trying to get more in touch with their story, shift story, tell the truth in different expressions and or just in their lives. So that's storywell.org.
You work with activists, you work with filmmakers, you work with artists, like artists. That's
Yep.
pretty cool. Storywell.org.
Yeah. Yep. So that's that. And then music forthcoming, always happening, but not as not as shared. But I think that's starting to come into its own too. Yeah, decades in preparation for that.
When it's time, there's a world stage for you.
Yes, thank you, Molly. You've blessed me with good air into that dream.
Can I share a little bit about the Wisconsin retreat?
Yeah. Yeah.
We were at a retreat in Wisconsin together, and at the end, closing end, Amy brought in her guitar, and man, I think everybody at that retreat, I don't know if there was a dry eye. I don't know. There was, like the power that came out of you. Oh my, whatever it was. I don't even know. And we were also like high on the
Oh, yeah.
deep psychological work. It was like, and it just blew us like every heart's wide open. We're weeping. We're like, what just happened? I don't know. So healing. So I know when it's time for that, it's going to be a gift for the world. But Amy, you are a gift for the world. So thank you so much for this. Thanks for being so vulnerable and talking about what came up on your heart, for sharing your poem and all of that.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you for bringing us all into your butterfly place and
Yeah.
growing us and growing with us and together and in such a beautiful inside out way. Yeah, you've gifted me so much.
Mm.
Your leadership, our friendship, just beautiful. So, yeah, big reverence to you. I'm wanting to say one more little quote from John O'Donohue. There's a place in you where you have never been wounded, where there is still a sureness in you, where there is a seamlessness and tranquility in you.
Mm.
Yeah, something about that is coming up. So passing that along. There is a place in you where you have never been wounded, everybody. Let's move from that spot.
That's where we find it. That's where we pop out of the nervous system rules and into something so much bigger, so much higher.
That's right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Molly.
My compassionate friend, I am so glad you're with us. We are the compassionate revolution. We are the change the world needs, and we're becoming it. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or give this podcast a 5-star review. I'd appreciate it so much. And if you'd like to get practical and work with me more closely on boundaries, you can come visit me at boundaried.com. That's boundaried with a D.com for amazing resources. Because this is how we do it. One action at a time. We are moving into our power. And I'm so proud to be in this movement with you.